Welcome back to the Lights Out podcast, bedtime stories for boys and girls around the world. Good evening, boys and girls. Are you ready for bed? Are you all snuggled up and ready for another Lights Out bedtime story? Good, because you're in for a treat tonight with episode episode 501. That's right. This is a return to an awesome book called Fing by David Williams, and we're going to continue with chapter 15, Trap. Father woke up as the Monsterpedia bonked him on the head. Bonk, bonk, bonk. Mr. Meek grabbed hold of the book. Unsure of where to put it, he stuffed it down the back of his trousers. Needless to say, the book didn't like it one bit and tried to squirm out. "Stop," ordered Mr. Meek, giving it a light slap. Anyone who was there might have thought here was a man who was slapping his own bottom. Fortunately for Mr. Meek, he was all alone in the deepest, darkest, jungliest jungle. At once, the man began making a plan. If he was going to catch a Fing, he would have to set a trap. So Mr. Meek found a clearing in the deepest, darkest, jungliest jungle, not much bigger than a paddling pool. First, he opened his now rather battered suitcase and took out the tin of custard creams. It was heavy, as it contained 100 biscuits. He set the tin down next to his feet. Then he took out the hamster's cage and put it on the jungle floor. As quietly as he could, he opened the little door of the cage. Creak! The plan was to lay a trail of custard creams with the last one actually inside the cage. All the man would have to do was wait until a Fing followed the trail of biscuits. Then, as soon as it was nibbling the final one inside the cage, Father would slam the door and bingo! The Fing would be trapped. Rustle, rustle, rustle. A sound came from the bushes. Is anyone there?" called out Mr. Meek. There was no reply. Not that a wild animal, or indeed any animal, was likely to call back. "Yes, I'm here. Woohoo! Hello!" The silence that followed put the man's mind at rest. Probably just another gust of wind," he muttered to himself. Of course, Mr. Meek had exercised incredible restraint in not gobbling down all of the custard creams himself. It had been a month since he'd set off from home with only a small packed lunch. At one point, he'd become so ravenous that he'd resorted to eating a pair of his own underpants. Dirty ones at that. Needless to say, they didn't taste good. Savory rather than sweet. Father knew he couldn't fail his daughter. There would be hell to pay if he didn't return home with a Fing. Goodness knows what hideous humiliations she would devise for him this time. Previously, when Mr. Meek had displeased his daughter, she had made Father sit on the naughty step outside in the snow until his bum went completely numb with the cold, sent him to bed before he'd even got up, buried all of his clothes in the garden, so he had to go to work in the library wearing only his vest and pants. Oh my gosh. Buried Mother in a flower bed, forced Father to eat cold cabbage for breakfast, lunch and dinner, told him to stand in a corner on one leg balancing a plant pot on his head for a year, set him to work scrubbing the house from top to bottom, armed only with his toothbrush, then made him clean his teeth with that toothbrush, made him sleep in the shed, and ordered him to drink from a puddle. When Father turned back to open the biscuit tin, he was horrified to find the lid was already off and it was completely empty. "No!" he cried. This was a disaster. Someone or something had eaten all the custard creams. The end of chapter 15, The Trap. And the book by David Williams, Fing, here on the Lights Out podcast. Bedtime stories for boys and girls and things around the world. Good night.